Well, I am here with my friend Greg Kaczmarski here on Shelter and Study, and we wanted to get some time with you, Greg. Thank you so much for being on with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, Dave.
Yeah. So some people on this call will know you or remember you from your time here at PCLG. It's been some years, but tell us, just briefly introduce yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Your background.
Starting in the beginning, I grew up I was born in Poland, still at that time during communism. It was 1984 when I was born. Came here to America in 97. My parents were here for a couple of years before that. And then we settled in New Jersey. Cutting the boring long story short, I ended up after some trial and error and some failures, I ended up attending the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, became an infantry officer in the Marine Corps from the academy, and then deployed twice, once to Southeast Asia for humanitarian reasons, and also some operations in the Philippines with Abu Sayyaf, and then or combating Abu Sayyaf, and then my second deployment was to the Helmand province in Afghanistan, which kind of takes us to the topic of discussion.
Definitely. What years was that, more or less, that you were in Afghanistan?
So in Afghanistan, I was in the Helmand province in 2012. I was there for about 9 months, from late February until October, and I guess it's my job over there was as a commander of an embedded advisor team, which means that we weren't on any of the big bases. We were intimately living and working and eating and sleeping with the Afghan counterparts.
So you were not on a U.S. base; you were embedded with Afghan
troops. Correct.
Wow.
So it gives me a little bit of a unique perspective on what happened over there then and what is going on over there now.
Yeah. So 2012, that's kind of right in the midpoint of this entire, war. I mean, this 20-year effort. It seems like you're right in the middle of it, right?
Yeah. So this was 2012 in operations in the Helmand province. Helmand province historically is a Pashtun heavy population.
Mm-hmm.
Pashtuns are very traditional by Afghan standards. It's there's not much Western influence there. Much different when you're looking at a history of Afghanistan than Tajiks or any other tribe or population that are there. So it's
in the south.
It's in the south. Yeah, it's by the Pakistan border. Historically, very much of a Taliban stronghold.
Yeah.
And the Helmand province at that time, this was about 2 years after the Marines initially pushed through and took over the Helmand province from the Taliban. So very, very heavy fighting. I was there during the summer, which that's kind of how fighting ebbs and flows.
Mm-hmm.
The winter is usually a very quiet time as far as combat. The summer is when the fighters from Pakistan move back over to Afghanistan and start doing some things.
So, okay. So you're in southern Afghanistan near that Pakistan border, and definitely you're saying troops, Taliban or others, are coming across the border back and forth with Pakistan. That's a known.
This happens, seasonally every year.
Mm-hmm.
Or would happen.
And would those people have been Pashtun? They're all Pashtun in that area on both sides of the border?
It's most of them, I would say. It's definitely not difficult to tell, but it's, especially as a Westerner, as somebody who doesn't live there, it takes a couple months to adjust. Then a couple months where you're, I guess at your prime of fighting and understanding the population and living with them, and then you leave. So it's definitely difficult to figure it out. There were definitely some foreign fighters there as well from other countries. So, and they all dress the same and try to fit into the population. So it's difficult to say.
So the troops that you were working with, the counterparts, the partners, were they Pashtun? Were they from that area? And what was their perspective on their fellow, on the fighters they were going against?
So I was working with a big battalion of what was then called the NCOP, the Afghan National Police, I would say.
Okay.
So they were almost I wouldn't necessarily call them special operations, but they were the national police. They were a little bit higher in echelon than higher in training, higher operational capability than the local police, and a lot of times than that the national army presented as well. They were not from that area, so the ANCOP battalions would be sent almost as deployments from another area in Afghanistan to enforce security measures in villages and regions.
Okay. And then I know when we've talked before, you talked about your interactions with like village elders or like, local leaders in that place, not military, but just sort of people who live there. As you think back, what was your relationship like with some of those kind of, I don't know, tribal elders maybe, or local leaders? Did you interact with them?
I did. I mean, I in that area, in that small area, I was being so I advised for the NCOP, for the police, I advised their battalion commander, or relatively speaking, their colonel, so a very high ranking older military police official.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I mean, I was really the US representative in that relationship, and so I met with village elders all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And also living in their village.
Yeah.
It used to be kind of crazy to think about, but where I lived was this blown up ex-drug lord's house where the Afghans lived in the big house. And there were only my team was about roughly 60 Marines, but we were spread through different positions. So on this particular position, it was only me and 4 other Marines in the middle of this Afghan village. So with that said, because we lived so close to them, because we lived, in the village itself, I would see elders and people coming up to us to make decisions all the time.
Wow. Wow. So I remember at some point you had told me your perspective on just, this war, this whole effort we were in for 20 years. And you and some other Marines talked about it even then, like how you thought it was going or how it would end. Can you tell us just your perspective, or that of your fellow Marines, of how you guys perceive this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'll speak only for myself. Opinions change, and as much as we talk amongst ourselves, but
Sure.
I'm not going. I guess I'll just tell you kind of what I feel, and then you can go from there. I mean, I remember having a conversation with a fellow, my best friend in the Marines. I got back from a pretty long operation. I hadn't been on the big base at this point for a couple of weeks. So, tired, haven't, as weird as this sounds, haven't had a shower in a while. It's a completely different environment. And I remember we sat down at the helo pad of Camp Jackson, which was the biggest base in the area. And it was, it was kind of where you could a little bit get some privacy, because the helo pad is big. So, you can see who's coming and who's around, right? Not that I really wanted it to be that way, or I was afraid of somebody hearing us, but it was nice to kind of get away from the ops, the other Marines, just kind of have some time with my buddy. And I remember having a discussion. This is in the summer of 2012, as we're going through all these combat operations. I just got back, what we call in the wire, which is back from patrolling, from doing an operation. I still had my radio headset on, my armor. I mean, I only took my flak jacket. I only took my helmet off. And I remember talking to him, And we literally, at that time, this is almost 10 years ago. I mean, we literally thought what just happened was inevitable.
Really?
This is exactly what we thought would happen. So even then, even while running these operations, even while doing everything we could to, protect the population and set them up for good things and obviously protect ourselves and come back home and all of these things that are going through, a warrior's mind when they're in combat, we knew.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, 10 years, almost 10 years ago, having that sense, what did you, as you watched the last, let's say, few weeks, the news of Afghanistan, do you follow that closely, having been there, or is it like you're kind of a little distant from it and you don't keep up with it as much until maybe recently?
I don't keep up with it very closely. I mean, obviously it's tough to get away from it, over the last couple of weeks. Everything, the way I look at these events and the way they are reported, there's always, a prism that anybody who's reporting on it has. So for me, it's a little bit, I wouldn't call it a waste of time. And I'm not trying to claim that I have some amazing vision to all of this, because in all reality, I don't. I was there for 9 months and in a very specific area with very specific people. So I don't have any insight into
Everything.
strategic goals and then operational maneuvers of the U.S. military or the government of Afghanistan, or negotiations with our government. So for me, it's almost just, I understand what's going on, but to really dig into and watch hours of footage of what is happening over there, and then some reporters' take on that is a little bit of a waste of time, honestly.
Okay. How are you feeling? And maybe if you talk to any buddies after that, that last attack that happened right around the airport during the pullout, I don't know. I mean, those are all Marines, I believe, who were on that.
Yeah, there was, I believe all of them other than one. One of them was a Navy corpsman.
Okay.
Which, if you look at a Navy corpsman attached to a Marine platoon or to a Marine team or squad, whatever it is, I mean, they're as much Marines as they are any other Marine there. So, it's tough to swallow, and it's tough to think about it in a short amount of time of this happen. I mean, very conflicting views, just like they have been. And I mean, you and I have talked about this even when I lived there, and hours of conversations from what I remember of, there's not really a set path that I have on this. I mean, it's kind of difficult to, for me to have like a one-liner of this was good and this was terrible and everything else. I mean, there's, from one end, I mean, they're there to do a mission, and this is what Marines and sailors and soldiers sign up to do. We don't ask the questions. We don't question why. We just go, and that is part of the warrior ethos, right? Now, at the same time, were their lives lost because mistakes were made? I believe so, yes. But at the same time, what does it matter what I believe? I mean, in all reality, right? It doesn't, I don't have the wherewithal of, again, operational, tactical training that the Afghans had that were helping them, or anything that was going on with it right now. I mean, again, was the withdrawal rushed, and maybe that's what caused the attack? Yeah, but there's probably 1,000 other reasons that caused the attack, and that's just part of combat. One thing that I would say is, there's a reason why the Taliban uses suicide bombers as a you know, as a threat, right, or as a weapon. I mean, it's almost impossible to pick out a person who's willing to kill others by killing themselves. There's, it doesn't matter what amount of armor, what amount of roadblocks you have between you and that individual, they will eventually get to you. They will eventually bypass everything and you know, kill you if they wanted that bad. So that's probably the, you know, the sad part about it. I mean, it's, I don't know, you know, your thoughts go to the families and you know, what they have to go through, and then and really, I mean, we don't really talk about it, and it's not talked as much about, you know, the Afghans that died in the blast as well, right? I mean, we focus on our own, and for good reason, because they are our own, but I don't even know how many Afghans died in the blast and how many were wounded and everything else.
Yeah.
Long answer to your short question.
It's a good answer. That's why we're paying you the big bucks. You're on here,
Yeah.
you know, given the content, inside look. Yeah, one of the big questions I think a lot of us have at this point is, you know, one about our own kind of military and families, and as people come home, you know, I don't know how to be supportive to the veteran community. And then two, especially around refugees, Afghan refugees, who our church supports quite you know, in a lot of ways, and it's important to us. What would you say about how to support vets these days? I don't know how to support, what do you think about the refugee side of it as well?
I mean, the veterans obviously is a little bit more easier answer for me. You know, as far as from a veteran perspective and a combat perspective, just I would say that the best thing you can do is keep an open mind into our opinions and the voice that we have, because of the experiences that we've been into, because the experiences that we've had. Not a lot of them, you know, and again, I don't know, but some of our opinions based on what is going on over there probably don't match with yours. Doesn't mean that they're incorrect, doesn't mean that they shouldn't be listened to. That is probably the biggest thing that combat veterans specifically struggle, is that we come back into society, and that society expects us to be, you know, in a collared shirt and presentable, and now all of a sudden fit right back into life where that society also sent us into combat. I mean, obviously we made that decision ourselves to serve, but there's a lot of, as you see right now, there's a lot that we don't have control of as service members. So just like I said, be understanding, be you know, this supportive. That's why I'm staying away from supportive, because support can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Some people, you know, they just want to be left alone. And then so when you overwhelm them with some kind of support that you feel they deserve or should have, it could be counterproductive. So I would say just be understanding, of our experiences, which then frame our opinions on life, on combat, on deployments, or the military, or everything.
Yeah.
As far as the Afghans, I mean, again, just it's hard to you know, it is difficult to underestimate how much an open mind helps. And so, you know, not being a refugee, but definitely having come from another country and not being born in the US, again, have an open mind to what these people have gone through. We, no matter how bad life seems for some people in the United States, it is absolutely nothing compared to the rest of the world. The poorest and the most oppressed among us are first world citizens. And I say that having traveled around the world and having been and grown up in a communist country. Just understand that what these people go through to be here, it's literally the poorest among us are fortunate compared to them.
Wow. Man, this is great to get a chance to hear from you and, just ask you questions and see where it goes. I really appreciate you reflecting on this, with me, but also with those who are listening on this call. I know I want to respect your time and everybody else's for today, but is there any last word you would have, anything to share with us? I really appreciate it. Those are great things, kind of open-mindedness towards the vets and the care for them. And then also not to underestimate the suffering of these folks who are coming as refugees. And those are great ones. Last word.
If you have any other questions, I have a couple minutes. So shoot, but I don't want to cut you off either. Yeah.
No, great. Okay. Well, I know, I know a lot of our folks, in the church are interested in what happens next. We're watching the news and all of that. I don't know, as you said, your small view or your particular view, what's your worry or what's your hope for what happens around Afghanistan from here?
Okay. My worry is that these events of the last few weeks will re-engage our I would say will light on fire again the need to be in Afghanistan. And so what my worry is that we turn this withdrawal around into another prolonged conflict in that country. Now, again, that is based on my opinions, a lot of deep thought and philosophical reading of war and peace, and what conflict and peace between just generally historically people has been and continues to be. It is not necessarily specific to this situation, but it does apply, right? Because some things throughout history don't change. That is my biggest worry. I think whatever mistakes have
in or get people saying,
that it draws us, yes, it reignites the fire in the population, in the leadership, in the military, in the government, to draw us back into a prolonged conflict that will, again, where Americans, Afghans will continue to die, where we spend trillions and trillions of dollars on warfare. And so that is probably my biggest worry.
Okay. Do you have any hope for what comes next? Something that you see as a possibility, a good, or is it sort of like unclear? I don't know. How do you think about it?
I mean, my hope is that what has happened over the past 20 years, how the world has changed, some for good, some for bad, has shown the Taliban leadership that there is a different way to rule people. And even if it's slightly more open of a society than it was before we got there, before the invasion in 2001, then, or shortly around 2001, I would say, just to be historically accurate, around that time, that's what my hope is for the people of Afghanistan. I would say that, to me, the invasion, the prolonged war over there, to me, it's clear that when we do invade other countries and when we do these police around the world operations, and again, having been part of that, we generally do more damage than good. And I understand that's a very arguable point. But, I would say, yeah, the hope is that the Taliban or whoever takes over the government in Afghanistan right now sees that the world has changed and there's a lot more open, it creates a much more open and free society. And then, yeah, like I was saying, the biggest worry is that somehow these events draw us back into a prolonged conflict in Afghanistan.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic. At this point, I guess we're almost rooting for the Taliban. I mean, to be, like you said, to be good rulers or to have learned something and to stop ISIS or ISIS-K or whatever it's called.
I generally,
or not ISIS, Al-Qaeda-K or what? I don't know the name of that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I generally root for the people. Whatever, and that's really anywhere, right? And my perspective, and again, it comes from growing up under communism, is that the governments the rights of people, just like it is written in our historical documents, come from us and come from God, not from a government. So governments should allow freedom and liberty to, they should foster that, not create rules that then are to be followed because we are their subjects. So that is what I hope for the people there.
Yeah.
And again, yes, I mean, if that means, am I really cheerleading the Taliban and hoping? No, not really. I mean, they are just another government around the world. I mean, again, the hope and the rooting is for the people to be as free as possible.
Yeah. Oh man. Amen to that. That's a great perspective. That's right. Well, we are, we host here in San Jose a refugee house called Emmanuel House that has a number of folks from Afghanistan, and they came on special visas, having worked with our troops and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of them have families there. So we're really very concerned about the situation for them right now. And so I don't know, we're, talking to you is kind of a link into like the military experience. And I really appreciate that. And then we're also going to have a chance to hear about kind of the lives of refugees here and how do we support them as well. So
perfect.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, Greg. It's great to see you. You still playing chess?
Yeah, I'm still into it.
I remember when you kicked my
you
butt.
You still playing Ultimate?
Yeah, still out there chasing plastic. Yeah, for sure. Man, it's good to see you. Thank you for being on with us tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure, Dave. Absolutely.
Hope to talk.
Yeah, and again, if my apologies that this had to be recorded. I wish I could have made it live and answered more questions. I mean, if you guys have, I'm an open book. So if you're interested in more, or if you have questions specifically from other people, I would be glad to make it happen in the future again.
Could I ask you? Could somebody
Absolutely.
email you if they wanted to?
Yeah, of course.
What's your email? We'll put it in the chat. But
I mean, part of it is my last name. So
never mind. No,
I'll send it over to you.
Yeah, I got it. We'll put it in.
But yeah, gjkaczmarski@gmail.com. Just absolutely. No problem.
Anyone who can spell Kaczmarski, go for it.
Yeah, seriously. Let's do it.
All right, brother.
All right.
Love you, man.
Take care, everyone. Take care, Dave. Thank you.
All right. Bye.